president of the Lewis and Clark County Democratic Action Club. I'm pleased to have with me today Dirk Adams, who is running for U.S. Senate. Thank you for coming to our program today.
Glad to be here.
And I want to start out by asking, what kind of background do you have that would be beneficial to you as a U.S. Senator?
Well, on the skill set level, I've been a negotiator one way or another most of my life, and I've also been required to be creative in finding solutions to problems. And I think being creative and being a good negotiator are two key criteria of a senator. My experience background is that I've been active in education as a professor and as a junior high school teacher, the hardest job I've ever had. And I've also been active in the law as a trial lawyer. I've been a rancher and a business person, and been active in some technology items. And I own some small businesses. So I have a very varied background, much like Montana itself.
Okay, that spans law, education, ranching, business?
Yes.
Okay. And why is it that you decided you wanted to run?
You know, I thought we needed a progressive voice in the Senate from Montana. There are so many big issues, not only social issues, but also economic issues, particularly with the way the middle class is getting hollowed out, that I thought we needed somebody who could not only work on social issues, but could also understand and contribute to solving some of our economic challenges.
You are opposed, I've heard you speak before, and you are opposed to the Keystone XL pipeline. And I think that's a really hot issue, and I don't think the other candidates feel the same way. So I'd like to hear an explanation.
Sure. I am the only candidate in the U.S. Senate race that opposes the Keystone XL pipeline. And the reason I oppose it is that it's fundamentally about transferring Canadian oil, dirty, very dirty Canadian oil, at $50 a barrel in Canada to Port Arthur, Texas, where it'd be worth $100 a barrel. And my evaluation is that allowing Canadians to make money by crossing our state when they won't build the pipeline through British Columbia is simply not worth the environmental risk. I don't think letting Canadians and the Koch brothers and the Chinese National Petroleum Company make money on the tar sands oil is a good reason for Montana to take pipeline risk. There's just not enough reward for the risk we take. Now,
some people say there are jobs related to that pipeline.
You know, there really aren't. Permanent jobs are 30, 35. The most recent estimate by Steve Daines is the construction jobs are 850 in the state of Montana. You know, frankly, there are lots of jobs being created in eastern Montana already from the oil and gas boom, and the notion that there's actually people available to do that construction work, or that it's going to be union construction work, is simply wrong.
I read an interesting opinion piece in the IR just the other day, this author, his name is Steve Thompson, he has a couple of interesting things in here. He says that crude markets in Montana and the upper Midwest are oversupplied.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons gas is cheap and cheaper. As a rancher, it's never cheap, but it's cheaper than it would be in other places in the country. And Mr. Thompson's absolutely right that building the pipeline is going to actually increase the price of gas here in Montana. And you know, the pipeline guys, the refinery guys in Billings and Laurel admit that it's going to increase the cost of gasoline here in Montana. So for Montanans, I just don't think this is a proposal that wins for us.
And do you consider yourself an environmentalist?
Well, I do. You know, early in my career as a lawyer, I represented the environmentalists successfully in a lawsuit stopping a nuclear power plant in New York. And I've been an environmentalist for a very long time. And I not only am opposed to the pipeline, I believe that the most significant issue facing us as a country and as a civilization today is climate change.
So if that's one of the most significant issues that we're facing today, besides things like opposing this pipeline, what other kinds of, let's say, legislation or lobbying
Right.
would you do?
Right. I think it's a great question, and I think it's important for Montanans to come to terms with the environment in Montana. This extraordinary landscape in which we live is our primary economic driver, and I think the faster that we can transition away from coal and transition into other kinds of businesses. I have a proposal for fiber optic cable throughout the state into all our schools with network hardware and the necessary devices so that we are truly a part of the knowledge business, the knowledge industry in America. And I think it creates many more good jobs than continuing to dig up coal.
What about now let's think of you as a United States Senator. How about nationally? What kinds of things?
Well, I think the president's on the right track with regard to the coal plants and the regulation of the existing utility plants, and I would encourage him to finish that job. But I also think that creating an opportunity by creating an agency like the Rural Electrification Administration, except for fiber optic cable, so that states as large, as rugged, and as sparse in population as Montana have a chance to participate in all the businesses that turn on having high-speed fiber optic cable is extremely important. I noticed just this morning that Senator Tester was talking about telemedicine. And particularly in eastern Montana, without fiber optic cable, Montana is not going to be able to participate in the medical device revolution that's occurring. They need the access to fiber to be able to take advantage of that, and thereby to practice medicine in a state that's remote. If you talk to Sarah Calhoun, who creates the Red Ants Pants and also the Red Ant Pants Festival in White Sulphur, she's much more articulate about this issue than I am, but she talks about how important it is for her business in White Sulphur Springs, Mark County, Montana, to have high-speed fiber, and she actually has high-speed fiber in Mark County, and so she can enjoy the extraordinary environment of the Smith River and what else is available in Mark County and run her business. And I think that's something that a lot of folks are beginning to understand about being connected to the knowledge economy.
So you envision a state that is less extractive and more knowledge-based because of the connections that they have.
Yes, and I want to talk about that for a second, because most states in the Intermountain West have migrated their economies to a more diversified base. And states like Colorado and Utah and even Idaho and New Mexico and Arizona and Texas and California have migrated away from a solely extraction-based economy. We need to get over this debate we have where the only good paying job in Montana is one extracting something. There are lots of other businesses and industries that we can attract to Montana given this extraordinary landscape if we have the necessary fiber optic infrastructure so that we can have choices. We don't have to completely eliminate mineral extraction, but we need to be able to offer other things.
Okay, so the climate change and environment are really very interesting issues, but I want to ask you if you have some other important issues that you'd like to pursue.
Yes, I do. I'm very concerned about the role of big money in politics, and I've been concerned about that for some time. I don't take corporate money, PAC money, or lobbyist money, and I think it's important for voters in Montana, 70% of whom approved the instruction of I-63, I think at 163, to get a constitutional amendment on Citizens United. I think it's very important for the citizens to understand that they have the ability to control whether there's big money in politics without a constitutional amendment. I think a constitutional amendment is fine, but they can just not vote for candidates that raise money from corporations.
So, and that should be clear to people when they see ads and so on, well, where
Absolutely.
that money is coming from.
Absolutely, and of course, there's also the federal election commission reports.
Okay, so let's just imagine you win this primary, and the main thing for the Democrats is to beat Steve Daines. So why do you think you would have an edge in doing so?
Well, first of all, I think that I have the background, that diversified business and ranching and agricultural background that allows me to speak to people who we're going to have as voters besides just Democrats. I think it's extremely important that we reach out to those folks and that we be articulate about it, not always hiding in the telephone booth, but out there among people, talking to them and letting them ask us questions. And my experience has been in talking to Democrats and Republicans and independents is that even though Republicans may not always agree with everything that you have to say, the fact that you can demonstrate expertise in their line of work and in their business, agriculture, for example, makes you much more attractive to them than if you have no experience in agriculture or business. So I think I can reach people that another Democrat can't, and I think I can beat Steve Daines because, frankly, I think I have a much broader and diversified job experience, and I'm much more articulate than he is.
Okay, now you have been out doing a lot of campaigning. You've been out, instead of the big money, you're using a lot of shoe leather and tires.
Right. We're running an insurgent campaign.
Okay, can you tell me about where you've been and what you're doing and what you're hearing?
Sure. I can tell you that I've been in almost all of the counties, that I've had an opportunity to talk to a lot of Democrats. And my experience in talking with them is that they're very interested in talking about the ideas. They're very attracted to my website, where I actually spell out where I am on the issues and I don't hide, and that I am a progressive. And I've actually generated some excitement with my campaign because I'm willing to talk about the issues and new ideas, and I'm particularly willing to talk about economic issues.
Now, is that why Carole King was interested in your campaign?
Carole,
Tell us about that.
Yeah, Carole King, what a whirlwind she is. I didn't know her before the campaign. She was attracted by some things she read about some of my environmental positions, the fact that I'm willing to protect the Northern Rockies ecosystem and want to work on that in a serious way. Attracted her to my campaign, and she was been very supportive, and it was great having her. It was a lot of fun. In addition to being very qualified.
So she sought you out, is that
Yeah.
what
Oh,
you
yes.
said?
Yes, ma'am. She sought me out. I did not know her. She called me on the phone one day while I was driving down the road.
And you had like a fundraiser or an event?
Yeah, we had two fundraisers, one in Bozeman and one in Missoula, and then of her own volition, she decided to do a free concert in Missoula as well. It was quite the event.
So what would I see if I went onto this website that Carole King apparently went on and
Right.
got inspired by?
Well, I think what you'd see, I hope what you'd see is that I have all of the issues that I think are relevant in today's campaign laid out, and I have very specific positions on where I stand. I've not tried to soft soap or hide in any way, camouflage in any way, the way I feel. Voters don't have to guess. They either like it or they don't, but they don't have to guess. And I think the voters deserve that kind of respect.
Okay, there's a couple other issues that we haven't talked about, but most candidates will talk a bit about them. And one of them is Obamacare. So the Affordable Care Act. Is that going to be a non-issue at some point in time, or what are your thoughts on
Well,
that?
first of all, I think it's interesting the Republicans have gotten much quieter about the Affordable Care Act since the 8 million people signed up, and I think that's good. I support the Affordable Care Act, and I believe we should go to single payer. That's very clearly set out on my website. I'm not opposed to the Affordable Care Act. I think it's a good idea. And hopefully one of these days, everybody will calm down and we'll just get on with our business. And if there's a tweak here or a tweak there that somebody needs to make in the course of this providing health care to every American, I assume that'll get done.
So, like you, I come from a farming kind of background, and generally the people who work on farms and ranches don't have insurance. So, do you have employees?
Yes, the
that-
ranch
that-
has 3 or 4 employees depending on the time of the year. Right now we have 4, and we provide them with the insurance premiums necessary for them to pick a health care product.
Oh.
So we do. We're a little bit unusual in that, but we do provide the premiums. They go and calculate how much they need, and then we write them a check. But we let them pick the health insurance. And obviously, the Affordable Care Act helps them make that decision.
Right.
Now, it's terrific. It's much better than it was before when they would go out and pick the insurance, but the choices weren't as good.
Okay, the only thing that we've touched on here that has to do with international is Canada. But there are a lot of other things happening around the world that a senator would be dealing with, particularly recently. We've seen a lot of, and so what would be your approach?
You know, I think that the president has the right idea about disengaging from some of these places. I think he's not done a good job of communicating what his foreign policy objectives are and how he intends to accomplish them, and how particular hotspots fit into that overall worldview. But I think the instinct he has that we need to quit spending our treasure overseas in areas where, frankly, although there's a lot of very unfortunate events, large forces of Army or Marines or Navy or Air Force folks are not the solution to the problem.
Okay, and one other thing I have time to ask you, and that has to do with federal spending, debt, things like that. That's another issue.
Thank you so much for asking that. I think it's really important to understand that the budget, for a business person or a rancher, the budget is a tool. And it helps evaluate what the business is doing, but it's not the only tool. And I think it's so important for the government, the federal government, to be more transparent than it is with regard to how it's doing in a particular department. For example, the current concern about the Veterans Administration. What are the metrics for deciding whether the Veterans Administration hospital, any particular location, is doing a good job or a poor job? Why aren't those metrics available on their website? And they're not. And why aren't there regular updates of those metrics? So I, as a small business person, for $39, I can get software that allows me to have a dashboard that shows me all the important things that are going on in my business on an up-to-date basis. And I don't understand why the American people cannot see the departments and what their metrics for performance are. If we have 47 training programs, seems like a lot to me, but what is the objective of each training program, and how do they measure it? If you're not, as Peter Drucker taught us 30 years ago, if you're not measuring results, you're not managing results. And so I don't like to get into the debate about the budget, because frankly, I think the people that are in the debate about the budget really don't understand what the social programs are and what their objectives are. And so I'd like to see much more transparency from the federal government. And then I think citizens generally will coalesce around a particular view if the information's available. This is our federal government. That information ought to be available. We shouldn't have to watch CNN to discover the head of the VA say today that 14 days is his objectives for getting a doctor's appointment in the VA. That should be on their website, and we should be able to measure it for every hospital for every day. And so we need some work done there.
Thank you. So we have covered a range of topics,
Yeah.
and I appreciate your being here. And you have a website. I imagine people can go there,
Right.
If they want to give you money or help you out in
Right.
one way or another.
Right.
And we don't have any regular programs for the Democratic Action Club at the library during the summer. However, we will have a booth at the Lewis and Clark County Fair, and I'm hoping to see lots of candidates. Maybe you will show up at the fairs.
Okay.
Well, that'll be after the
primary. Well, I'll show up
primary.
after the fairs because I'm going to win the primary.
Okay, that will be great. All right. Thanks for watching.